Skylanders, a game franchise hated by literally every parent ever, but a video game franchise loved by most kids born in the early 2000s. Take me, for example. Across its 6-year lifespan, it released 6 unique games, and a 7th one currently being leaked and currently in development, apparently. What makes the Skylanders franchise so interesting to replay is the many different characters you can play as, each with their own unique powers and abilities. But what are the 20 that stood out to me? Well, let's find out today in my top 20 favorite Skylanders. Just to warn you though, this is my opinion and there are some biased picks due to obvious favoritism from my childhood, so keep in mind that if your favorite Skylander is not on this list, or if your least favorite Skylander is in fact on this list, please don't be mad. So, yeah, let's just get right to it.
Glory.
Gusto already impressed me with this overall design, but it's when I got to my Portobello Roadster did he really shine for me. His main attack is Boomerang is really powerful, even though it is slow to come back. Luckily, he can suck up enemies and gain health from them. Yeah, maybe he learned from Bat Slobbertooth.
Look out below.
At first, when I was younger, I only really wanted to have dive clops so I can supercharge one of my favorite vehicles and superchargers, that being the dive bomber. But when I finally got him, 6 years later, I realized how cool he actually is alone. His water torpedo cannon can shoot out mines, and he can even use a sonar move to track them onto enemies, which is a really cool move by itself. Then he can also use his water geyser and turn around and defeat multiple enemies at once. Compared to another supercharger, Dive Clops just doesn't make it, but he still manages to impress me overall. Alec Windmiller, you're going to hate me for this one, but compared to the others, I just feel the others have a personal spot in my heart. But I still can't deny how great Gilgrunt is. His design is really unique, being a military fish guy. His harpoon is great for covering longer and short-range distances. His hose is great for clearing out small groups of enemies, which is really useful when you're in a sticky situation. Unlike most flying abilities, his jetpack is actually maneuverable. Skylanders Trap Team was already a great game on its own, but Snapshot is the reason why I kept playing Trap Team. His bow and arrow are great for long range distances when you're in a sticky situation. His tide pulls are kind of naff, but they're still great for knocking back enemies. Luckily, if you upgrade them enough, they actually become powerful. And I'll never forget that Crystal Slam. It took me 7 whole years to realize how cool this guy actually is. He was already cool enough being a dinosaur with boomerangs and an Australian stereotype, but the more I played him, the more he grew on me. You see, his boomerangs does a great amount of damage and you can even control him like drone strikes. His second attack is great when you're in a sticky situation, and he can summon fist mines from the ground. Now, I wish I played him a lot more when I was younger.
My sword is yours.
The only thing that's letting Chop Chop down is his secondary move. Sure, out of all other Skylanders, he's able to defend himself, but it takes forever to master, and his sword is already too overpowered enough. Because his sword can also take health from enemies, and he can summon brambles from the ground, which is great for long range distances. And it made me love Archeans more. Yes, Crash the Skylands, I actually really like this guy. He is extremely great when you're in a long-range situation, being able to fire beams from his crystals. He can even refract them of crystals he can summon from the air, which is a really unique game mechanic, and it isn't carried over from other Skylanders. I also have a bit of bias to him, since he was my first Earth Skylander. So yeah, that's Prison Break. Well, this is certainly a controversial opinion. I'm the only guy that seems to love this guy and also think he's adorable. His main attack is very great for long range, and if he gets his soul gem ability, he can even gain health from eating enemies. I mean, it's just so satisfying. He can also turn into a wrecking ball, and even though it takes a while to charge up, it's able to defeat many waves of enemies, and that's why I love Wrecking Ball. Feuded gets extra points for being the first Antalita I ever collected. His zipline ability is great for latching onto enemies and then finishing them off with his extremely overpowered axe weaver. He's also able to summon tripwires that can easily stun any enemy. Also, many people think that his design is ugly, but personally I find it really unique because he looks like the Grinch, so that makes sense. Now, Trigger Happy is a character you can love right from the start. His main attack is so satisfying and nothing feels better than shooting a bunch of enemies with golden coins. His safe attack is also great when you're in a close range situation, and he can summon a frickin' machine gun that never runs out of bullets if you get his soul gem. I swear Trigger Happy is from some sort of mafia. See whether I'm correct. Now we have our top 10, and what a better way to start this top 10 with one of the most universally beloved Skylanders, Drobot. He is hands down the best dragon Skylander, because like Trigger Happy's, you can spam move his lasers. His secondary's move does take a while to get used to, but it's great otherwise, and instead of wasting an entire tertiary attack on useless flying, instead you get nifty afterburners, which can be used to defeat enemies. But if I'm being honest, the best thing about Drobot is his very satisfying to hear voice. Oh god, I love that voice so much.
Protect and surge.
When I first got High Volt from my nearest Argus, I didn't expect him to be that great. Turns out, he actually really was a really overpowered Skylander, and he became my favorite supercharger. His attacks are just extremely overpowered, but even if you don't upgrade them, they're still great. But actually upgrading them makes them better. Whoops. Skylanders Imaginators is my least favorite Skylanders game because they nerfed all the great original Skylanders and the senseis were just too overpowered for my taste. Blastertron was the only sensei that I would actually enjoy playing without getting sick of. He has a really unique moveset, and due to my personal bias of him being one of my favorite villains from Trap Team, I was already in love with his really great personality. Also, he has a laser sword. I mean, come on. How is that not cool?
Talk and all.
Fun fact, I actually got Lightcore Jetpack and Lightcore Prison Break from my aunt before I got the original Jetpack from Skylanders Giants. Now, I really love his moveset and I don't know why many people hate him. His main attack is very great from a long range and short range distance, and his vacuum is great for taking out small hordes of enemies, and if you upgrade his flight ability, he can do a barrel roll. Why is he hated all the time? I love this guy. The life element is one of my least favorite elements in Skylanders. Berserk made me reconsider otherwise. While not exciting at first glance, when I first played as him, I instantly fell in love with him. I love utilizing his rocket launcher and being able to damage enemies with shrapnels despite being a war crime in real life, but whatever. And his defense system is actually pretty great. Oh, and in Imaginators, it actually distracts the enemies, so that's hilarious.
Hey, I'm on fire.
Being the first Skylander I ever collected, yes, I got a Mimo before the starter packs, mind you, I naturally have a lot of bias when it comes to Hothead. I really enjoy his moveset, being able to oil enemies and then set them on fire. Yes, I love seeing the enemies burn before they get defeated. He can also use a rain of fire, which is also a pretty nifty move, and he can turn into a motorcycle. And since I am also a Transformers fan, that goes down with me very well. The concept of a dirt shark is already awesome in its own right, but give the dirt shark his own personality, a really sporty attitude, and you have Terrafin, one of the best characters in the entire game. I feel this guy needs his own spin-off game. But anyway, back to why I love Terrafin. His boxing is really powerful, and his belly flop is great at clearing hordes of enemies, and not just smaller ones. He can also summon sharks that damages the enemies over time. I'm really so glad that I got this guy, and that's why Terrafin is more than deserving to be my favorite Earth Skylander.
See the light.
When the new light and dark elements were being introduced in Trap Team, yet another reason why I love Trap Team, Nightlight definitely caught my attention. I tried looking everywhere for at least one character from the light and dark element, and I can't find them anywhere. That is, until my mum got me Nightlight, and I thanked her since. I love this main move where he can make enemies fly by just a swipe of his blade as shown here. He can also lift enemies up with a beam of light, and he can also slow down enemies when he slashes his swords to the ground, which is really helpful for crowd control. Nightlight is a perfect example on how to introduce a new element. It's a shame Astro Blast ruined his reputation. Now, this is a character I have a lot of bias towards, since he's the second Skylander I ever collected, but I always really enjoy playing as Drill Sergeant from the start. He has a really cool design, first of all. Second of all, I really love his well voice acted personality. Also, I can do a good impression of him. Beep bop, numbers are fun. Never mind. Going back to his moveset, his drill rockets do a great amount of damage, and he can bulldoze charge, which does a great amount of damage too, and you can even do it without a drill rocket. You can even do all of this while shooting a blaster. Now, Drill Sergeant is just the Terminator of the Skylanders, and that's why I love him so much. The reason why Ghost Roaster is my favorite Skylander is not because he was my third, fourth, or whatever first Skylander I've ever collected. Rather, it's because when I first saw his commercial in the now deceased Skylanders website, I was absolutely terrified of this guy. But then strangely enough, I also really wanted him too. And when my mum finally got him for me, yes, my mum used to buy a lot of these figures for me, I just couldn't stop playing as him. But that's because he had a really extremely fun moveset. His chain attacks are great for attacking enemies at close radius, and his other attack where he turns into a giant floating skull head, it is also great for speed running a game, and he is also able to turn the enemies into ghosts. And then he can also use his ghost head to eat these ghosts, which is a really great recovery move. Without Ghost Roaster, I would have never tried other horror-based media, like Resident Evil for example. Ghost Roaster taught me a valuable lesson, and that's why he's more than deserving to be my favorite Skylander and my favorite video game character in general.
And that was my top 20 favorite Skylanders. What are your personal top 20 Skylanders? I am open to any opinions. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.